Let's talk about first grade math. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you a detailed comparison of Math UC Alpha as well as Math with Confidence first grade. Obviously, Math with Confidence first grade is labeled for first grade. Math UC Alpha is not labeled for first grade, but it could arguably be considered Math UC's first grade program. Of course, either one you also could use in a different grade level. I'm using both of them for kindergarten with a math interested and math advanced kindergartner. So I do want to preface this with a label of don't be too attached to the grade levels on a math curriculum, but also they can be really helpful. So I'm going to be sharing with you a detailed look through both of these curriculums to help you know which one might be a good fit for what you are looking for. All right, let's get started. Now, the resources needed for Math UC Alpha include the blocks, the famous Math UC blocks. I don't feel like you use these as much in Alpha as you do in Primer, but they still definitely get used. And then the student workbook, the teacher's manual, as well as there is a test booklet as well. There are also videos, which I can't show you right here, but all levels of Math UC have video instruction. Math UC does tend to be very, very consistent from level to level. So once you know the format of Math UC, it's pretty much going to stay that way up until calculus for the most part. So once you get the format down, you're not really going to have any surprises. So you do have, it's all divided into 30 lessons, which maybe would take you roughly a week. Maybe they would take you a little bit longer than a week, which is fine because a school year is typically 36 weeks. So they're all numbered up at the top 1A. So lesson 1A, this one looks like it's focused on place value. We're starting the year with a focus on place value review, which was introduced in Primer. And then you go all the way from 1A till, well, usually there's a G page, but maybe not for 1. Then we have lesson 2, and 2A it begins with, and you'll notice this one, there's a lot of repetition within one lesson. So, especially here at the beginning where they're doing a lot of just review of basics. Being able to write the numbers to 20 is the focus of this lesson. So you'll notice there is page after page, several pages of writing the numbers till 20 throughout this number 2 lesson. One thing to note with Math UC, something that you should know, it's totally legit. This is not like breaking the rules. If your child has shown mastery, that they can clearly master everything covered in a lesson before making it through all the practice pages, you don't have to finish every single practice page if you don't want to. You can if you want to, and if you like workbooks, or if your child's young and you want to kind of slow them down, you can have them finish every practice page, but you do not have to. The G pages is what I wanted to show you because most lessons end with a G application and enrichment page, which might have dot to dots or other fun problem solving type activities. Very simple at this level. They get more complex, of course, at higher levels, but you can tell that these first couple weeks are very much review of concepts introduced in Primer. So this is just a quick look inside, but if you are interested in not having your child complete every single one of the workbook pages, one way to know whether they have really mastered the subject, which you can usually tell by how they do on their workbook pages, but one way to really tell is that at the end of each lesson, you're supposed to give them a test, which the test is basically exactly like the workbook pages that they've been doing. It's doing the exact same type of activity, but it's testing to see, okay, have you really mastered it? And that way your child can also know, have they mastered it? I think it's really important to note that in the homeschool context, tests are not supposed to be punitive. They're not supposed to be a stressful, terrible thing to experience. They're simply measurement tools that are helpful for both teacher and student. It's a measurement tool to know, do I know this or do I not know this? Some students really benefit from the test experience because they aren't very good at assessing whether or not they know something. So you get a simple test which looks almost identical to a workbook page. But those initial lessons I was showing you were mainly review lessons coming out of primer. Alpha is very much focused on addition and subtraction, which sounds very simple, but it tackles a lot within addition and subtraction. So we're doing addition and subtraction here, we're showing it with building, but here we're also practicing writing our number words, which is a very common thing to work on in first grade, writing and spelling the number words. We also end up having a lot of word problems. Word problems are a big, big thing in Math UC, and they will be part of your life for a long time. So here, 15F, then we have a 15G, a little bit creative. Up here in 15, we have quite a few word problems there. Depending on how well your child is reading by this point, you could have them read the word problems and do them independently, or you may be needed to read the word problems to them. So that's a look inside of that. Now, the ultimate question that everyone asks with early schoolwork, with early math, is do you need the instruction manual? Do note that this instruction manual is much more than answers. They do have all the answers right here. You're typically not really going to benefit. You're not really going to need that many of the answers for first grade level math, you know, but they do have them. But a lot of people are like, oh, if it's just the answers, I don't need to buy the instruction manual. But it's not just answers. They do have lesson and teaching tips. The teacher guide is not something where you're going to be pulling out and reading from a lesson every single day, because they just have one lesson teaching guide for that week, right? Or that however long you spend on lesson 10, which might be roughly a week. So you're only going to be looking at the teacher's guide once a week. And actually, once you get the hang of teaching Math UC, once you get the hang of the system, you might not even be getting it out every week. So this isn't the type of teacher guide where you constantly will be getting it out, but they do have some definitely useful information. They have some tips in here. They have explanations of why they teach things the way that they do. So, example, like right here, here's the reasons for teaching skip counting. Because maybe you're wondering, like, why do we need to bother with skip counting? Why are we spending so much time on it? They explain some of the ideas right there. And they give tips for teachers, examples. Sometimes they have ideas for little extension activities. So it's not useless at all. It is definitely not the kind of thing, oh, it's just an answer key, I can totally skip it. No, it has stuff in here, but it's also not something that's so essential that you're going to be living with your teacher's guide or getting it out every single day, if that makes sense. So that is a look at Math UC and how that works. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I am very happy to answer them. Now here I'm going to show you inside first grade Math with Confidence. And this is quite a bit different from Math UC. It also is a very conceptual, applied math, visual approach to math. But it's just very different, and you're gonna know when you see. So one of the things that I find very different is that with this instructor's guide, you pretty much are going to be living in it. You are going to be getting it out every single day. This is your main guide to the lessons. The instructor's guide is actually much thicker than the student workbook. So we have our student workbook here, which is, you know, a lot of pages to do, but our instructor's guide is very thick. There is a lot for the teacher. So what a lesson or a week looks like with Math with Confidence is what I will show you. You also need a little bit more than just the books. You're going to need a math box as well, which I will show you here. Math with Confidence does suggest creating a math supply box so that all of your math supplies are in the same place. This is what I set up for kindergarten. I need to add a few more things for first grade, like a model clock, a toy clock, but I'll just show you what I already had because you're using many of the same things for first grade. So having some play money, pattern blocks are used a lot, index cards, some paper money, some counters. We have the little bingo style counters. We use straws quite a bit as well. So it will look roughly like this. And now back to the books. So I want to walk you through a week with Math with Confidence. Maybe let's start. So this is also divided up into weeks, and I believe there are 32 weeks in the schedule. With Math with Confidence, it is divided into weeks. And at the first grade level, each week has 4 core lessons as well as 1 enrichment lesson. I think the best way for you to understand it is to really just walk you through a week. So each week begins with an introduction page, which I find these pretty helpful to know, okay, what are we learning about and kind of what's the point? Why are we learning this? Why are we learning about equal parts and congruent shapes this week? Okay, it's the foundation of understanding fractions. That makes sense. Fractions can be a tough thing for kids, so getting this foundation is a good thing. All right, every lesson is broken up into a few pieces. There's a warm-up, there are some activities that are done with the teacher, and then there's the workbook, which is more independent work for the student in the workbook. So this is the rhythm of your lesson. The first lesson of week 8 is on halves. We have a warm-up, and the warm-up is typically reviewing things that you've been working on. So here it looks like we've been working on counting to 5s. The child's supposed to count by 5s to 50. You could make a small toy jump on each number on the 100 chart as you do it. That sounds fun. You can review how many sides does a triangle have, square, rectangle, and then you can play a game that was played in a previous lesson. This is something I want to point out. There are a lot of games in Kate Snow's math, but it's not like it's a new game every time. You do tend to play the same games, or you play the same type of game with some small change to it to make it apply to a slightly different concept. And I really like that because I don't want to spend a lot of time learning new games. So to me, that is a very effective way to do games, that we review it, we review the same games, we play some of the same games, so we're not wasting time learning a new game. We just get to play it and learn. So you have some very short warm-ups here. Then you have an activity where we're breaking food into half and each person gets a half. Then we cut index cards into halves. So simple, hands-on ways. So it's very visual even in the teacher's guide to give you options. Here are some different options that we could make equal halves out of an index card. But here are some options that we could cut it and wait, we didn't make equal halves. Then here, oh, if I cut it like that, I made 4 pieces. That's not cutting the index card in half either. Then here it kind of can guide you if there's any extra info you need for the workbook. They will give you that information right here. So as you can tell, this is a teacher's guide that you will need to have open pretty much while you're doing your lesson. It's telling you exactly what to do. Then this lesson is going through fourths. And we have, once again, you use a lot of index cards in first grade Math with Confidence. Don't underestimate how many index cards you'll need. But that's also one thing I love, like how much you can do with a simple index card. You do quite a bit. Then here, it looks like we're reviewing money and we're reviewing counting by 5s with nickels, putting 5s together into groups of 10, and counting pairs of nickels by 10s. So we have review. You're always reviewing concepts that you have already gone over, which is really good with young kids. Then lines of symmetry are being introduced here. We have congruent shapes. Here we do our warm-up. We do our activity with introducing congruent shapes. Then another activity with a tangram puzzle, which it looks like she has a black line master in the back of the book for that. You could also probably use any tangram puzzles you might already have because you're a homeschooler, and homeschoolers tend to have random educational stuff like that. And then this is the optional lesson. The number 5 lesson is always optional at the end of the week, but it also has a warm-up. In the optional lesson, they always suggest a math picture book. So I'll talk about the math picture books in a minute. But then there's also an enrichment activity. These enrichment activities tend to be very active. Sometimes they incorporate art. Sometimes they incorporate going outside on a walk. They can incorporate quite a few different elements, but there's no workbook page for this lesson. They're very hands-on and active in this lesson that there's no workbook, but it's an application to real life. You also have the answer keys for your week right there. And then after that, oh, it looks like we're at a checkpoint. At the checkpoint, so once you finish week 8, you're at the end of unit 3 checkpoint. And while there's no tests in this curriculum, this can kind of serve as a test for you to think about, is your child ready to move on? Do they know these things? What could you do if your child needs more practice? They give you options for different skills to go back and keep practicing with certain activities that are targeted towards specific skills. So if your child still needs to practice addition facts that add to 10, or with sums less than 10, you can practice these activities. For example, then they give you an intro to the new unit. Now I will show you inside the student book. So in this case, I'll show you the same week just to make it make sense. Although obviously the whole thing is not about shapes. That's just what happened to be the focus of this week. But for the first grade level, the student book pages are double-sided. So a child will be doing both sides. And yes, they have this focus on the new concept, usually on the front side of the page, and the back side is usually a review concept, which is fairly common. Even you'll see some of that in Math UC as well, that the back side of each lesson page will do some reviewing of old concepts. So we're reviewing tally marks, we're drawing lines of symmetry for these objects, always reviewing addition, gotta get fast, right? Matching congruent shapes, we got some money review, and that was all the pages for week 8. Then we're going on to week 9, which is practicing subtraction. Now, one further part of Math with Confidence that I definitely don't think you should ignore, because I think this is a really cool and unique part of this program, is the picture books. She recommends and schedules a picture book for every single week of the year. So there's 32 picture books scheduled. Now, I didn't go out and buy 32 math picture books, but I did buy at least a handful. And when I bought the handful, I tried to pick ones that targeted different topics that I knew were going to be covered. You can find the list of picture books for first grade on her website. So that's where I found that list, and I just looked for which ones I could find affordably and which ones looked really interesting and which ones kind of covered different topics. So I'll show you which ones I got, but I am also just slowly building a little collection of math picture books, even so I can kind of take the idea and run with it. Even if I couldn't get the specific book, I can just read at least some kind of math-focused picture book. But here's the ones that I have that specifically go with this program. 100 Hungry Ants, which is a really fun one. Applesauce Season, which brings back good memories for me because I always made applesauce with my grandma growing up. Can You Count to a Google? You know, that official spelling of Google. The original meaning. Anno's Counting Book. We have several books by this illustrator. 100 Snowmen. We've actually read this quite a few times because the boys love snowmen, which makes sense for kids born in the tropics. And then Measuring Penny. So as you can see, I really only have a handful of the required books, but this one focuses on measuring. This one actually focuses on addition quite a bit. There's an addition problem, or there's addition happening on every page. 3 plus 4 snowmen. This is a counting and observation book. This is a big number book. And Applesauce Season has to do with measurements, cooking, and using math and cooking. And then this one has different arrays, basically, of ants, different arrangements of their numbers. So they're all really cool books. So that is a look at these two programs. If you found this helpful, definitely please give me a thumbs up and let me know if you'd like to see any more curriculums in other videos in the future. I like to create nerdy homeschool videos, so click the subscribe button and stick around for more. Leave me any questions you might have about these programs and I will try to answer them if I can. I'll be seeing you. Bye!